session, so later on you can watch it back. And then, Jarek, the floor is yours.
Fantastic. Thanks for the quick introduction. We're here today to talk about financial planning. I've got a small presentation. Hopefully we'll make it work so we finish before the hour ends. So bear with me. This is supposed to be an interactive section, so if you have any questions, please. I don't know if you can unmute, but I'm quite sure you can use the chat. Is that right? Fantastic. That's the confirmation from the organizers. So it's one of my favorite topics. In a moment I'll tell you why. The idea is to prepare a financial document usually used to attract investors or other stakeholders. It's a little bit blurry. Now my memes are not the best, but they're gonna get better. So we're here because of the Talent Fusion program, and it's part of the sessions. The organizers have already mentioned there's 2 more sessions left. You've already been participating in sessions about business modeling. Today we're just talking. We're talking about the basics, how to start to build a financial plan. And this is me. Why can I talk about this? I'm originally a math person, but turned to finance. And what's most important to you, for the last few years, I've been working with accelerators, like one of the organizers, Axel Point, mentoring startup and helping them to get the finance in order or be investor ready. And this is, I think, one of my favorite topics. And I do have 30 years of background in that area, so hopefully it helps. I'm also recently joined an EAC accelerator program as a jury member. It's a very interesting program, has a lot of different aspects from incubation. It's called the Pathfinder into the accelerator, where there's also a transition program. So there's a new perspective going on right now. Please have a look. Maybe it might be of interest to you for future financing. Financial plan logic. It's an easy intro to today's topic. What we're gonna try to present is where should you start? Well, how can you find the right numbers and how you can test and validate them? And for me, it has this kind of. There's some kind of step up. I like to use the terms bottom up and top down, which means bottom up is what you have tested and came up from your kind of exercises or market research, to top down, which is using some readily available market data coming from reports or analysis by the Big 4 or big banks. So we split that into 4, actually 3 points for today. How to start and build up your financial model. So we're gonna simplify the steps and show you what's expected of you, what you can do to make it easier for you to simplify the complex kind of spreadsheet that you can see sometimes in the presentations. We're going to talk about different methodologies. I mentioned top down. We're going to touch on objective key results. So OKR is one of my favorites. It's a way to use a simple tool to find out some projections or forecasts to simplify your financial planning exercise. And then we'll touch on how to test, validate, and compare your numbers to the other ones. And this is part of the, I would say, top-down approach, but it's also giving you a little bit of more color into the world of pitching, which I guess is going to be the next topic. So let's start. I want to start and build your financial model. Again, my memes are not perfect. So the joke here is that most of the people just start with building most of the deep tech or science-led projects that I mentor. have a spending plan rather than a revenue plan. So the idea is to show both sides. And some inspiration where to get that. This session is supposed to be inspiring, so let's start with that. Some of you might be familiar with the business model or lean model canvas. This is the one on the left. I'm setting it here next to the typical flow of a pitch deck. For me, this is one-to-one. So basically, most of the things that you see on the left-hand side in the Canva, you can find in the typical flow of a presentation. And why am I mentioning this here? Because two of the main components of the financial plan are actually mentioned in the Canva on the bottom. This is the cost structure and revenue streams. So to simplify, if you decide that your business model includes one or two potential revenue streams, this is the first two lines of your Excel spreadsheet that you want to start with. And with cost structure, it's a little bit more complicated, but most of the time you would look at simple costs for people and maybe services or hardware that you require. So it's not so many of them, and it could be a little bit more complicated when you get into the detail. But at the beginning, it's important to get the revenue streams right, because that's where people struggle. Most of the grants and other programs require to show the cost structure much better. So I guess more people are familiar with that. The revenue streams are the ones that people struggle with. And if you look at the typical pitch deck flow, you'll see that some of that will be shown in your business model and traction. Somewhere along that, you might be willing, or you might be encouraged to show your financial data. That's why I think these two approaches converge here. There's a lot of places on the internet that you can download samples of a financial plan. This is a very complicated one, and I use it in one of the programs that I teach as an example of why you shouldn't be doing that. I won't mention the author of this particular one. It's an old one, but it has been refreshed from the point it was screenshot by me. It's the idea is that they have provided a template, but the template is not relevant to the particular business that they thought it was supposed to be meant. And my takeaway from this, it's much better for you to build up from a very small spreadsheet with a granularity, the way you understand it and the way that you can translate it and talk to your stakeholders, rather than downloading a tool and then thinking, how do I fill all this data? Because it might be not relevant to you, to your business, and to your stakeholders. I hope I've made that clear. And the reason I'm showing this one, there's actually a couple of mistakes here, and this is one of the exercises I do, and a slightly longer version of this webinar. So, know your costs, set revenue goals, and that will lead you to the next topics. Why do you need a financial plan? Because you're looking for funding sources, and then it means that you have to show how you're going to spend the money, which is the next exercise, creating a budget, and then you have to review that. Let's focus on the first two. Know your costs, set a revenue goal, and then you can recycle those and adjust them as you go along. Let's just give you a perspective. So instead of doing this is a monthly exercise going into 2 years, which is the typical kind of horizon that you should be doing some projections. You can start with a annual one. You can start with a quarterly line. You don't have to have that many columns. You might start big, and also you can start with the simplified we talked about. One main or two main revenue lines coming from a business model. Well, we'll talk later how to predict the ones coming later. So what I'm trying to say that this could be a spreadsheet, not 20 by 20 almost, but it could be a spreadsheet something like 8 quarters going forward and maybe 4 or 5 lines. So it's much simpler. And you don't need to have you don't need to have any special tools for that. I guess any online Google Docs sheets or Excel should be fine. My takeaway from this a little section: start small and build up, and just try to see if we can come up. Maybe we'll get that to get that a little bit later. Where try to test some of your numbers from bottom up and see how they match up to the top down approach. We'll get to that in a moment. I think I put this takeaway a little bit too early. So we're skipping from the top down, bottom up, and going into OKRs, one of my favorite topics. OKR, objective key results. This is a very simple methodology to set, measure, and iterate planning for small and starting innovation projects. The idea is that you can define high-level abstract level company missions. You can attach some simpler goals to them, and then you can measure how you perform on those on a repetitive basis. What I mean by midterm goals, and I think that the best way is to split them into maybe business development, product development, and maybe financial development, and then you can have some set of goals inside of those. Let's show you a simple example. It's again a small spreadsheet, doesn't have to be that big, and you can read more about this methodology online. I'm suggesting that when you start reading about that, you can have a quick look at business development and tracking your favorite types of clients, the ones that you might have created during your persona development and customer development sessions. And let's give you a little bit more of that. If you were talking about me, I'm a freelancer that offers my hours to accelerators. How do I promote myself? I can use conferences, I can do LinkedIn, I can publish some white papers on the topics that interest me, which is how to finance innovation. I can get some awards. Recently, one of the accelerators gave me a top mentor, new star mentor. That was the award. How does that convert into what you're trying to do? If your business model has several different channels, you can put these channels into the OKR spreadsheet as your business development goals, and then try to test how would that work on a particular time frame. Usually the OKRs would have a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly or a quarterly iteration. So for me, if this is a season of conferences, I would actively promote, work with the startups or accelerators or VCs that I help by attending all the events. And I can test, okay, this is a certain cost and expenditure from your time. So it's giving me an idea about the cost. And I can also see, okay, I have met this number of potential clients through the conference and fair. And this cost me, I don't know, a week in a particular month. So I can actually count how many hours I've spent. And this gives me an idea how to put certain cost into my time frame and put some potential revenue. I had 10 leads, maybe 5 of them converted into some kind of follow-ups, 2 converted to meetings. Maybe I got 1 new client. So I'm building a funnel, and I'm attaching some certain costs. It cost me that much to set up, go to the conference, set up a follow-up meeting. You can have it all in this small spreadsheet, or you can use something else. Some of the startups that I supported have started with publishing a you could say quasi-scientific paper. We would call it a white paper. It's very popular in fintech and some of the Web 3.0 applications. You can use other channels. I think it's very popular to be a part of the accelerator and be promoted by the accelerator as part of a demo day. And this is one of my favorites. You can also try to reach out through social media and see if your particular prospects are there, and how you can convert either by cold or warm intros. Hope this does make sense to you. Obviously, it will be different to people that have B2C, B2B, or B2B2B business model. So it's all about testing and validating the numbers that you can always show. Whenever someone asks you about your financial plan, you can say, I've tested this kind of approach. This brought me so many clients. If I add another person or a bigger budget to that, I can double it. And this is the kind of response that you're looking for, that you can put into your projections, into your financial plan. One of the things that I learned being part of the capital markets is always under promise and over deliver. So it's better to be conservative rather than struggle and put some numbers out of thin air into your financial plan. And some people have a tendency to do that. Some of the recipients or stakeholders have a sense for this, and it's easy detectable, and it could be benchmarked, and we will be talking about it a little bit later. So how can you test some of the numbers that you put into that, and what are the other methods to benchmark the numbers that you're putting in? There's a great professor, I think he teaches Stern, New York, and he's got a series of talk on YouTube, and the one that I'm referring here is called The Value of Stories in Business. He's talking about evaluating big tech. It's a complicated. I think it's a 90-minute lecture to students, so it might be a little bit too complicated for you. But I'll give you a simple takeaway from this. He's trying to divide, or ask the people in the audience, what do they feel better about? Is it about number crunching or storytelling? And then he's trying to simplify this task whenever you're talking about your financial plans by showing how to connect the mission of a company to a particular metric, then building a story around that, and this is how to connect these two. And I think the best takeaway from this lecture is that. You should connect both of these. So if you have a tech background, I guess it will be easier for you to be a number cruncher. If you're coming from the business background, you might be more of a storyteller. It's best to combine these two qualities into one, and we'll have a little bit of an anecdote about this later. Any questions, any comments so far? I don't see the chats. I'll quickly check that. Nope, nothing there. Working on the right balance between number crunching and storytelling. De-risking your assumptions, that's part of the lecture. What his idea was that some of the financial forecasting that early entrepreneurs do is showing, for example, unlimited growth without competition, and that was one of the no-nos. So he was basically saying, try to adjust your numbers so they make sense in the long term, and you can't have a certain assumptions that will go on forever in your financial plan. The risking everywhere. What I mean by de-risking here is that whenever you have a chance to prove why you put a certain number into your forecast. So and most of the accelerators, there was an excellent example at the demo day that I've seen yesterday. One of the head of the accelerators was asking, when are you going to level of the monthly recurring revenue? And he was asking them, how quickly are they going to reach that? And this is an answer that you should have in mind. So you should know when are you going to reach a certain level of revenue, which month, which quarter, how many months away from now, how much money you need to get to there, and how quickly will you rise from that. So you'll provide some kind of upside to the investor. There's some other ways to look at the numbers, and we're going to go from the bottom up to the top down approach now. What I like to look at, and this is part of the typical pitch flow, is the market size. The market size is usually, you can imagine that there's like three circles. There's the total accessible market, there's a serviceable market, and there's actually the smallest market. And sometimes people put the growth, which is the compound, CAGR, compound aggregate growth rate, and this is a number that's showing in percentage form how much the market will grow annually over the next 10 years. Where'd you get these numbers? You get them from the reports from big banks or Big Four. How does this refer back to your numbers? Whenever you're trying to show your small piece of a market that you want to reach, it should be something that you'll be able to reach after the reach financing, maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. It should somehow coincide with the bottom-up data that you came up earlier. So if you're saying that, I don't know, I can go to 5 conferences and get 5 clients out of each conference in a quarter, and there's only 2 quarters of the conferencing. It's spring, early summer, and then there's autumn, early winter. You will not have a chance to get more than, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 new clients a year. And if you add more people to that, you can't say that in 2 years it will have, I don't know, 1,000 new clients. So this is the kind of way that you should look at the top down, compare it with the bottom up. Business model. We'll have an example where to look for the how to kind of see which of the business models are most investable. And there's a number of great sources on that. It also includes looking at the market trends from a lot of the aggregators. There's a number of companies that provide some segments reports that are more specific than the ones that we mentioned in the first point. And my last one, because I'm coming from the market that are working with live valuations, and you can try to research your vertical in databases like Crunchbase, PitchBook, Dealroom, and see how well invested the vertical that your business is. And this is a great source of information also that helps you validate your numbers. Sometimes I do that exercise for some of my startups. I find out if there was a similar complementary business in a maybe different geography, how quick it has grown using how much money, and that gives you some kind of idea how quick can you repeat their success or better or be better than them in a different economy, just because I don't know, Eastern Europe is it's growing faster or it's cheaper or anything else. One of these sources, we mentioned the reports. One of my greatest inspirations for validating how investable your business model is the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner, I'm sure some of you know, is a consultancy. They release every now and then something which is called the hype cycle. I think they invented this, and what it basically shows is how hyped or how high the expectations or how investable are certain aspects or use cases in the coming years. So all of these little dots on this curve represent this is a particular model for, I think, emerging technologies in finance, and it's not the latest one; it's late 22. What you can try to do, you can try to find a particular Gartner hype cycle. They're usually available as a preview in the paid reports, and you can try to see if your particular business model, business idea, vertical is described in there, and where does it place itself on the hype cycle. The innovation trigger is the moment that some new innovation shows up. Then there's a lot of people joining it and trying to build different use cases around that. Then you have a peak of inflated expectations coming into the trough of disillusionment, which means that some of these ideas fail to generate enough money. But in the long term, we're looking for these businesses that have survived this and go into the slope of alignment, plateau of productivity, really creative wording. This one, just because it was is focused on new technologies, is showing only once the hypes one. It's not a hyped one, so it's not showing us anything further down. You can find it when you search for the ones relevant to your market and to your business model. Any questions to this? Halfway through, I don't see any questions. I don't hear any questions. Let's move on. The other source of top-down information, which is not coming from these databases of transactions, are reports by some biggest aggregators. This is a CB Insights report about the split of unicorns in different industries. I was quite surprised to see that cybersecurity is already at 5% of all the unicorns, and it's almost 1/3 of financial services. You would expect it to be. It's in rising. I like both these areas, and I've been observing how undervalued the cybersecurity is, but it's coming up. So this is an inspiration to you. You can find a similar report, and it gives you an idea whether you have built your financial problem right. Are the numbers that you're providing there investable later on? You can always see if projects similar to yours have been invested, have converted, or have potential exits to the existing unicorns. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reasons why we build a financial plan, and this is how you can arrange it in a way that is more it gets a better feedback, or is better received by the parties that are interested. And if you look at the typical funding methods, especially in Europe or Eastern Europe, most of it would be accelerators. You would look at early stage funds, we call them venture capital, VCs, and you could have Europe is very, especially Eastern Europe, is very strong on using public money and grants. So this is one of the methods. And if you're into B2C products or services, you can always use crowdfunding. There's been a lot of new regulation coming into the EU, raising the limits. These are one of four. There's more than that. But why are we mentioning this? Because we're looking at different type of requirements by particular stakeholders. So if you're preparing a financial plan, some of these recipients, some of these stakeholders would look at different bits. So for an accelerator, it's more activity-based. So you're trying to prove that you have reached out to a certain number of prospective clients. You have done enough connections, maybe finally letters of intent with your potential market. With VCs, they're looking at traction. So this is a conversion of a letter of intent into actual revenue and the projections of growth there. And when you're looking at grants, they're looking at the cost structure more than the revenue structure, and they could be very peculiar, very diligent about that. So you might need to prepare, show and report very detailed costs data, which might include coming down to single invoice items. So this is very admin heavy. Some of my teams say that in certain programs it takes them almost half of the potential grant value to settle and make sure that you're okay with all the documentation. And in the crowdfunding, it's more of a marketing exercise. So there's there's a lot of different kind of agenda behind preparing a plan for crowdfunding. When I come to the big crowdfunding places pitching, they usually don't get into the financial plan. It's more of a spending plan. Let's sum this up. So what I'm trying to say here, that whenever you show your numbers, you have to make sure that you know your market, you know who you're talking to, and if you are trying to present your data, you should have been adjusting the language to the particular people that you are talking to. So different set of stakeholders, different set of numbers, different motivation. Let's get a little bit more into that. So we touched on the accelerators versus investors, but I'll split it into another two, where you can use or where you can require a financial plan apart from the investment side. You can also you can be asked to prepare financial data if you're looking for a particular partner. What could be your partner? It could be a company that is on the same market that you, has the same set of clients, and you'll have a joint offering to the clients. That it could be a large corporation that will have some certain agree to have some kind of proof of concept with you. And so the fourth one is you might be required to show that when you recruiting new people, you're looking for a co-founder. So how can you entice, how can you encourage people to join your team? You can show your financial plans and show how much you know about the markets and your business, and show what are the potential profits to be shared within this company. So for me, it's the financial plan is a part of your presentation that could be directed to different stakeholders. And let's see how this. I think I've added here another set. We had investors, we had your co-founders and potential key employees. We have partners, and I have split another two sections here, which are clients and users. So you can, in some types of business, you can distinguish by between people that are actually paying for your service or product, and the people that are actually using this. A good example would be people taking care of education in EdTech. The user could be a kid. The partner could be a school, and the client or customer could be the government or the parent. So this is a way to attract certain So what I'm trying to say here, that you're looking at different stakeholders, and you have to balance the value that you're providing through your business plan, through your pricing, through the way that you're fundraising, the way that you're paying salary, which is part of the financial plan, to benefit all of those. So you can't be do I have examples here? I think I do have examples. Let me see. Nope, I don't. Let me give you an example. The usual question that you'll get from investors: what are you paying to yourself and your key employees? And this question is a double-sided sword. You can imagine that you want to say that I'm paying my people well so they don't leave. The investor might have an inclination to spend less on salaries, but then you risk that you're going to have larger rotation. Or you can say, yeah, or the investor can say that, oh, if you're paying yourself too much, he will say that I'm funding you a good life. So it is an exercise for you to benchmark and to show that you're paying market rates, and there's no we call it debt created between the investors and the founders because they're taking smaller salaries, for example. Any questions, comments on this? Nothing on the chat. Okay. We're getting to the end of this. So we're looking for balance. We had already two balances here between number crunching and storytelling. And this is the balance between all your stakeholders. Sort of balancing to do. And this is a final anecdote that I have for today for you. It somehow relates to the storytelling. Fear of missing out. I heard that term recently. I think it was a fintech conference in Germany. I don't know if you know about that and about German fintech. They're not that advanced as some of the countries in Eastern Europe. They don't use. They use a lot of cash. They're not that advanced on using card payments or touch and go. And the title of the conference was actually fear of missing out. So they're thinking, oh, okay, the word is moving forward. We have to do something. So there was a catchy way of attracting people into in a fintech conference. But what I'm mentioning here is. Especially in today's popular hype of AI, it's a way to attract stakeholders or investors or co-founders by showing them that this is the one of a lifetime opportunity to join something new, something unique, and it makes me more investable generally. I got a great story behind that. Some of you might have followed that. The rise and fall of WeWork of Adam Neumann. He's so famous about that. There was even a show, I think, dedicated to the rise and the fall of this company. WeWork, a popular co-work presence. I think it's been present all across the world. They internationalized around 2018 after they raised, I think, some serious. I think around first round of around 1 billion around 2015 or 16 from one of the largest institutional investors in the world. And this led them to almost $50 billion valuation and a potential IPO. Where is it right now? It's filed to, there's some of these businesses are still continuing, but it has filed for bankruptcy, and basically they winding down in the offices. What was the reason? They were buying out buildings and renting them short term. It wasn't sustainable. But there was a great story behind the founder. Why am I bringing this up? Because Adam Neumann has created another another property management software, which is called Flow, and he's raised, I think, in early 23 at a billion valuation. So he's taking his investors again for another ride. So this is a inspiration to you that it's not always about numbers. It's about the ability to attract big investors and sell them an idea. It doesn't have to be very profitable. It doesn't have to. You don't have to have the greatest record. You just have to be a great talker. And that brings me to the takeaways, and that's my last slide. So some of these are more relevant to your next sessions, but I'll use them anyway. I always say that the language and the adjustments that you make into your financial plan and the way that you adjust it to your potential stakeholders and investors is part of the building some relationship. I've seen that as a result of some of the accelerators, that even simple things like measuring monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue. So this is a software as a service kind of metric. Was difficult, but people will get along if they try to provide and adjust their data. You don't have to come up with a brilliant and final presentation at day one. You can get to it. So it's a process. The venture community is small, don't burn bridges. I think it's relevant to all of us. One of my old bosses used to say, you never know which side of a table you could be sitting on. So it's important to maintain good relations with people. It's always I would say, a win-win rather than win-lose situation. Build passion into your pitch and practice it every day. Follow up 3 times. These are things more relevant to your pitching. Pre-qualify, I think the same with pre-qualify investor. I think the ones that could be important to you are number 8 and 9. It's about building a story. So it's trying to find a particular metric that will be the key of your financial plan, will be the key of your presentation. And it's easy. It should be easy to measure. It should be connected to your mission, and it should be you should be able to build a great story to it. So instead of showing I don't know. Different metrics. Sometimes we have to, I don't know, show revenue as a metric, or number of clients as a metric, or number of potential, I don't know, transactions. It's easier to simplify that. And the inspiration for me here is always to look at the missions of the big tech and how they translate their metric into some kind of wording. It's not very deliberate. It's usually under 50 letters, and it's I think and the greatest examples, one of them is Spotify. It's providing a variety of music to users all around the world at any time, I think, or some kind of more creative variation of these words. So basically what you can learn from that is the availability of different content and the amount of minutes that people spend on the service, just streaming music. So this is the way that you should sell that. And there's 2, depending on how far along you're with your idea, you can either sell your this particular metric if you have traction. But if you don't have it yet, you're on an early stage, you can try to sell the big vision, and then you can benchmark yourself by showing, as we mentioned before, complementary business, different geographies, people that succeeded with a similar project somewhere else, and you improving on that in a new place, in a new type market. And practicing from your pitches out, I would say, whenever you send out your financial plan, and there's a very good kind of security concern here. We're mentioning the financial plan in 2 contexts here, and this is very important. You could have a general aggregate of your plan, a very simplified version that you will show to everyone, and you'll have a detailed one that you only want to keep it for yourself, for your partners, and maybe to the investors that are already very close to you. For example, you have some initial words, you could call it a term sheet or a non-disclosure agreement, or it's part of your due diligence process. And the reason I'm mentioning that, but because sometimes if you spend a lot of time polishing your presentation, especially with your financials, and your document becomes public in some way if you send it out to a certain number of VCs, accelerators, and it's sometimes you want to keep some of these numbers closer to your heart and not reveal it straight away. So it's an exercise about it's not exercise about trust. It's about trying to put an aggregate that is still attractive, but it's not showing all your secret sauce. And that takes me to the end of this today's show. There's going to be 2 more sessions, as the organizers have mentioned. It's about what VCs want and practicing pitching. I think it's as usual Monday and Wednesday next week. Please feel free to sign up to those. And if we have some questions, I'm happy to discuss them right now. I can see something coming up on the chat. I've got a question in the chat from a user on train. And he would be happy to listen to 3 key metrics, not necessarily in the objective key results, that you would advise founders to track from day one. Great question. Is coming from Maciej. It's depends on your business model. All the types of business will have a certain metric that you can address. So we referred already to streaming services that will track the number of users and number of minutes or some kind of aggregate of that. So it's time spent, and that would be valid for Spotify's, YouTube's, TikToks of the world, because that's how they present themselves to the advertising audience. So you're showing, oh, I'm able to attract my X number of users by Y minutes a day, and this is there's also there's a lot of more kind of detailed analysis into that, but that would be this type of metric if you were in that business. In the more popular in Eastern Europe software as a service vertical, you could be looking at I think number of users or number of business partners that you have, but converted into money. So I think you will be actually looking at the money, the monthly recurring revenue. So that would be your predicted revenue from all your revenue streams, either it's sold directly or through some kind of partners. So it is kind of relying on the number of end users and the number of partners that you have, but you're looking at the actual income that's coming in there. So on top of that, for SaaS companies, you'd be looking at the number of people that have what was the biggest what's the value of a particular client to you? What's the cost of acquiring a client in that way? And what is the particular churn? So how many of these clients would you lose, for example, in 12 months? So this is another way to look at that. And again, some of these things will come up when you test and when you build up your data. You will realize that that's one of the great exercise of balancing your stakeholders. You could attract a lot of people by having a freemium model. So you'll provide a lot of incentives to the end user or customer for free. But then if it requires some kind of capital investment from you, it might appear that you are getting reimbursed for these costs really far away, far along the route. So it's not profitable for you, or you have to have enough investors to get into that, to get to that point. So that's the approach for streaming and SaaS. For companies in the earlier stages, I'm looking at a number of fintechs or industry 4.0. I even heard about industry 5.0 now. It's more of a AI related topic. So they would look at the simple traction connected to the number of users or number of transactions into the system. This is a great question. Thanks for that. Anyone else? Sometimes the exercise of building a spreadsheet is scary by itself. I think my experience here was I was afraid of doing that, and I always thought that I'm not very good. I'm very good with numbers, but I'm very bad with Excel spreadsheets. I know people that use Excel spreadsheets as calculators, so they keep them all time open all the time. But I somehow got into the habit to put any decision making into a process into a spreadsheet, and that really helps in building these small little exercises. And that's why I encourage you to read up on the OKR methodology, because it's a great way to kind of build a little filter in your actions every week, and then have a look at them from perspective of end of the week, of end of the month, and see how did that work for you, and should you keep doing what you're doing or just drop it. And it will have a little bit more of the objective perspective to it rather than emotional. And the other thing is that, and I learned it the hard way, if you put some things in writing, it has I wouldn't say it's more of a self-fulfilling story, but it does give you a some kind of background check and a more of a incentive to follow up on that rather than have it just in the back of your mind. And it's also a great exercise on self-control.
Thank you so much, Jarek. I don't know if you have any more questions, but we have a few more time. So if you have any question, feel free to ask them.
If you want me to ask you a question, I can ask. I can do that. do you use any financial tools when you're planning your projects?
Are you asking me specifically?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
God. No, unfortunately, no. I'm not really working on this field. I'm mainly working in communication field, so I'm not very working.
That's a great example. One of the parts of the communication is conversion. So whenever you pay for presence in social media, you have this click-through return on investment metric, which requires you to have a little bit of a understanding how big is the channel that you're trying to buy, how big is the campaign, how many times you repeat, and what's your return on investment. So that gives you both perspective of the cost and the revenue, which is a great tool to kind of measure your efforts. So that would be part of our 5 different channels that I mentioned earlier on that you could test through OKRs. Maybe it's much easier to promote yourself through influencers or pay, I don't know, Facebook to do a general campaign. So it is part of that, but I guess you didn't think about it this way.
Yes, no, I didn't think about this like that, but thank you. And actually, we have a question in the chat.
Why do venture capital funds achieve such low returns on capital invested in startups? According to official EIF data? That's a great question. Thanks, Janusz. I think that there will be more information about this in your next two sessions on what VCs want and how to pitch. But I can give you some kind of insight into that. EIF is one of the I think the abbreviation for this is DFI. So this is one of the aggregators that supports growth and certain economies. And we see a lot of funds that are co-funded by EIF. So as an aggregator, they have access as a co-investor. A lot of these smaller entities, they have access to the data. There could be two reasons to that. First, it's the specific type of stakeholder when you have a stakeholder which is I would say regional governments ecosystem driven, and being a part of the EIC Accelerator. Do you remember, team? I remember one of the objectives the investor behind EIC Accelerator is connected to EIB. They mentioned that they're looking for ideas that can't be funded by the usual channels or by the market, because they're looking for aspects that are critical to particular missions or verticals or themes that they focus on. So if you think about from this perspective, EIF is not that far away from EIB. You would think about this that within the EIC programs, there's a certain number of metrics. It could be space, it could be chips, it could be sustainable growth. And these verticals will attract money, even though they don't have an imminent kind of financial return. And that could be the reason that some of these verticals will not return the same way as the popular kind of tech verticals. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And if there is no more question, this is the time for me to say thank you for Jarek for this masterclass. It was very helpful for me as well. And thank you so much, everyone, to being here with us. And as Jarek said, we have 2 more masterclasses next week, so you can join. And thank you again, and have a beautiful day, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.